Join me, Dr. Julius Otundo, Riara University, on Unpacking CBC on the Elimu Show. My name is Dr. Julius Otundo. Sometimes I like saying that the two Julius Otundo, but otherwise I'm Julius Mzungu Otundo. I'm currently the Dean, School of Education, Riara University, and also the Head of Professional Development Programs at Riara University. I have been in the field of education for more than 3 decades. That is, if by close of this year, I'll be closing to around 34 years. I think I learn a lot from my children and how they have grown and what they are able to do based on what they learn. But basically, education is my cup of tea. I take education in the morning for breakfast, take it for lunch, and take it for dinner. And that's my culture. So my culture is basically education. When I talk about education, I don't mean just the academic approach, the experiential part of it. Because I know what is it that you are able to do with what you learn is the most critical thing. How does what you learn link with the industry? That's the most critical thing. And through education, I've had a chance to travel across the globe and to know what other people think, cultures of different people, and all that. But as a university faculty, I think it's a big challenge to us now to rethink learning and to rethink how we even test students and to rethink where we send them to and what the industry wants. The word competency-based education, or CBE, is the broader aspect that captures the form of education that the learners go through. So before I talk about the word curriculum or CBC, globally, it's about competencies that learners acquire. And they go through an education called competency-based education. Because education is a broad-based term that brings in the concept of how we learn, what we learn, and the expected overall outcome. Who do we set out there? Because when you finish your course and go into the real world, even now as you interview me, you are into the real world. It is the aspect of an education program. So it's an experience you have gone through. But when you're going through that experience, there is a framework. This framework on how the students are taught, or how the learners are taught, how they are assessed, which content they use, the strategies used in the classroom, the learning experiences used, all that is under a curriculum. So a curriculum is a design that directs what will be taught or what will be learned, how it will be learned, and the expected outcomes, what experiences to learners go through. So it's a guideline. So if you have, say, a big house like this, where we are, and this house is the education, inside it, we have a design on how it is done, and that is the curriculum. So I know some people use this word interchangeably, but what we are saying is that the framework under which a competency-based education program runs is the competency-based curriculum. So that's why we have CBE, competency-based education. But how do you go about it? How do you teach? Which designs do we use? Which materials do we use? Which resources do we use? Who teaches it? What are the qualifications of the people who teach? All that fall within the aspect of the curriculum. So the curriculum, therefore, gives you a roadmap on how to implement the competency-based education. So from inception, we have been running competency-based education, but the guideline to run it is under the competency-based curriculum. So those are not they are not like separate, or it's not a new thing when we say that competency-based education. We do not mean that we are moving to something new. No, it is what we have been practicing, but there must be a framework, there must be a structure within which that operates. We must have a design, we must have strategies on how teaching takes place, we must have which resources we're going to use, the learning experiences, how we are going to test. All that is outlined within what we call the competency-based curriculum. Now the industry wants you to be able to see what is it that we are going to innovate, to do differently because of this history. So we are changing from just teaching the concept of history as a static subject to history as a subject that will enable the doing part. We are moving from the abstract geography to the experiential geography, the practice. We are moving from the physics of how to name, how to do, to explain how series and parallel connection takes place, to making a series connection in a construction site, or making a parallel connection of electricity in a connection in a construction site. We are moving away from learning just parts of a flower to you learning parts of a flower and maybe pollination and becoming a farmer. The industry doesn't want you to go and name parts of a flower. Neither does the industry, Bolache, requires you to go and state different how pollination takes place. The industry requires you to become an agriculturalist. The industry doesn't require you to name technologies used in agriculture, but the industry requires you to use technologies in agriculture or to innovate new technologies in agriculture. But it is important for you to know. So we are moving away from leaving students in what we call the factual knowledge to leaving students in what we call metacognitive knowledge. Metacognitive knowledge is about thinking further on what you are using this, what you have learned for. And so that is where we are saying that why the change? It is because we need to meet the needs of the industry. The industry in Kenya is not different from the industry in the US. It's not different from the industry in China. I ask people, like now in this country we have so many China squares, and this should not be taken in a wrong context. But why don't we have a Kenya square in China? That's the big question we must ask ourselves. Why would we have a country where there isn't any industrial approach in another country? It is high time East Africa begins to export education. And that is the reason for which we are talking about competency-based. Just drawing back a bit, competency-based education is aligned critically with international forms of curricula. There is a parent or anybody thinking that it's a curriculum that is underprivileged. The answer is no. In CBC, we talk about competencies. In Cambridge, we talk about learner attributes. The learner attributes in Cambridge are innovation, creativity. They are the same as our competencies. In International Baccalaureate or IB, we talk about learner profiles. The IB is inquiry-based learning. CBC is inquiry-based. Cambridge is inquiry-based. So basically we are saying that if we embrace CBC, we embrace competitiveness in the world. So that Bolache, I'll be very glad when politicians in Kenya call for a rally at 10 and no one goes there because people are busy. But people are going to that place to listen at 10, imagine 11, and the place is packed and it's a weekday. Because they're idle, they have nothing they are doing. Insecurity is high because guys are not using their key competencies. But we also challenge ourselves as education facilitators on how we teach so that we leave students with competencies that become proficiencies in the place of work as opposed to just knowledge. Because 844 means, first of all, 7 years, and in 8 years in primary, not even basic education. 8 years in primary, 4 years in secondary, and 4 years in university. Now, the critique about it, number one, 844 has left out a very serious stage in life in education, early years education. You can't just jump from the house. You are born, stay for a couple of years, and jump into a building called a school. You start year 1. You call yourself now you are in primary. You have jumped a serious stage of social life. That is early years education. So 844, first of all, did not have early years education. I know some of you went through it, and you went through nursery schools that were there but were not recognized in the curriculum. It was just start off, let's go play, and that's it. But that's an important stage in life. Number 2, then it goes to 4 years. Meaning, it is out of 844 that the word failure and pass started. So if you did grade 8 or standard 8 and you got 400 marks and got into a national school, you are said to be the one who passed because you went to a national what? School. But this one who got 200 marks is said to have failed. Go and find out what Elon Musk scored in his basic education as even a special needs student, who first of all did not fancy anything away from technology. Go and find out what Steve Jobs, who had a special condition, scored, and find out what Steve Jobs is today. You find out about Bill Gates. I'm mentioning about people who lived with special conditions that could not be fixed in an 844 structure of learning. So you finish your 4 years in high school, then another term of pass and fail. Because you got a certificate to go to university, you are called passed. This one who did not get is called failed. Then you ask yourself, this chair I am seated on, I have no idea whether the person who did this chair, as nice as it looks, had an A in a grade, in a class. But he has a special skill. Where is this special skill being lost? It's because of 8 years you must finish primary, then 4 years in high school. Then the worst, who says everyone, I am a faculty, a senior faculty in a university, but who says everyone must always go to university to make it in life? And I'm not trying to demean, but I'm asking myself, must all of us professors be top academicians? Can't we just have a professor in music of practice? Because it is that practice you are doing. Can't we have this professor in a specified area of excellence? So we are saying 844 left out so many students. It led into students thinking that I am a failure because I haven't gone to university. I'm a failure because I have not scored an A. In fact, I have discovered that when the A materials, we work so hard to show that we are competitive to be employed, the C person is working hard to employ you. So if you study most innovations done, you might easily find very few A materials. And I'm not saying that people shouldn't go to school to become professors like I am, but I am saying, can we go to school to apply the knowledge learned, as opposed to going to school to cram things? And that is why in CBC, we have a critical competency called learning to learn. That is lifelong learning. You cannot stop learning. In fact, for me, where I come from, you only are counted to have died after you stay in the soil for 3 days. You're still learning, even if you die and you've not been buried, because of lifelong learning. 844, unfortunately, defined students at those 3 levels: 8 years in primary, 4 years, and 4 years in university. And most people who went to university, they went there to earn a certificate, to tell people, you know what, I have graduated. Do you know, if you asked me, I would rather graduate the one who works on my car at some point when he has finished assembling the most difficult thing on my car, than just graduate because you must go and look for a job. So also, we now have what we call recognition for prior learning, which I need to bring on board in this conversation. We have missed out greatly on recognition for prior learning. This mechanic who has done so well for over the years, but only dropped out of school in grade 7. But he's done well so over the years. Why can't I recognize him under recognition for prior what? For prior learning. So back to your question, 844, I still, even understanding the curriculum under which it operated. First of all, you know, it did not have a curriculum design. That's something people don't know. It had a syllabus. A syllabus is a pure course outline, and you are not to change anything in it. What to teach, the content. It did not have concepts of how to teach it. It didn't have. The how is the part of learning experiences. The designs we have in CBC, we have what we call learning experiences. And learning experiences is basically how do you, the activities you go through as you learn, in terms of which experiences do you go through. So in terms of even curating 844 to become CBC would have been very, very difficult. It would have been like trying to change a Peugeot 404, because I know you never saw that one, which is extremely manual, and change it into an automatic AI-driven vehicle. You'll spend more money changing it to that as opposed to just assembling a new AI-driven car from scratch. So that is why the need for change, you know? Because I know people argue, why couldn't we have just fixed this thing here and there? Yeah, but sometimes you look at things and you ask yourself, honestly, even if I decided to change, I might be likely to spend more time and more money on this. One, this is how the CBC is structured. We have early years, and early years runs from pre-primary 1 or PP1 to grade 3. So after they finish grade 3, they do some assessment, which is just to check how is learning taking place. Then they transition to upper primary, which is grade 4, 5, and 6. So at grade 6, they do a national kind of standardized assessment to align with internal school-based assessments, because CBC has a lot of emphasis on school-based assessment. So they finish at grade 6, and they do some standardized assessment test, KIPSEA. Then they move to junior school, which is grade 7, 8, and 9. And then when they move from grades, when they are in grade 6, when they moved from, let me go back a bit, when they moved from grade 6, they are expected to have moved with a 20% of their learning. So meaning, if you have succeeded to be either approaching or whatever, it is X over 20. Then they move with, say, that percentage into grade 7. In grade 7, they'll do some internal assessments. They will add on the 20 to, they'll add another 10. So 10 plus 20, they came from grade 6, they are now at 30. Then they move to grade 8. In grade 8, they'll also accumulate another 10% to add to what they have before. So they already, grade 8, they have up to 40%. So after they have attained that, both internal assessment and community service learning projects, now they go to grade 9. So at grade 9, students are waiting to acquire or to accumulate 60% because they already have 40%. So they'll be assessed with a standardized assessment test to do that, to be able to transit. At grade 9, they are doing 9 learning areas. But when they go to grade 10, they'll be expected to do 7 learning areas. So what is the transition? The students will transit as per their pathways. But sometimes it's important to know the pathways and also to know the subject tracks. I may not mention about the subject tracks now because there are many. But when students leave grade 9, they'll be expected now not to transition into general schools, but rather into areas of specialization. So senior schools, now we do not have things like called national school, extra count, we don't have. What we have in senior school, we have categorization of schools according to one, pathways. A school could be covering either 2 pathways or 3 pathways. We have categorization according to gender, which we have always had, girls and boys. We have also classification according to accommodation, where we have day school, but now we no longer have purely boarding school. We have hybrid, meaning every boarding school will be required to have some percentage, a minimum of 10% day scholars. So we have day or hybrid. And then we have also categorization according to special needs, because special needs learners are stage-based learners as opposed to age-based. So you can see when they leave grade 9, you can decide that you are going to take STEM pathway as your major. And then you can have a minor, either as a minor pathway as social science or what? Or sports. So what is going to happen is that senior schools are categorized into, therefore, according to pathways. The ones going to offer double pathway and others going to offer triple pathway. So double pathway, you are only offering 2 pathways, but 1 pathway is a must for all schools, the STEM pathway. Why is it that are we making it compulsory? First, our Vision 2030 needs to be looked into. Sustainable goals are 17 of them, but sustainable goal number 4 is quality education and training. And that quality education and training is the one that is going to enable to eradicate poverty as one of the sustainable development goals, to eradicate diseases as one of the sustainable development goals, to ensure climate change, climate justice, and environmental conservation as one of the as one of the SDGs. So what I'm trying to say is that students therefore will transit to senior school as per their pathway. So I was answering the question, why is it that a STEM pathway is compulsory? That answers the question why we do not have China Square in, we do not have Kenya Square in China, because we were more theoretical as opposed to practical. So the STEM pathway, every senior school must have a STEM what? Pathway. Together with, then to add on either social science or both. And that's why if you add only social science or you add on only arts and sports, then you'll have double pathway. But if you have the 3, then you'll have the triple what? Pathway. So if a student is going to say STEM side, he must know, because STEM also has 3 parts: pure sciences, applied sciences, and technical studies. So meaning STEM has a wider scope of the learning areas, because social sciences has only has only language and literature, and humanities and business studies, while arts and sports has sport science and arts. So when a student wants to go majorly to STEM, he will go to a school offering STEM in that area of specialization, because a school can also be offering STEM, but it doesn't seem to offer all the learning areas. Then another student can say, my major is law as a career, so why do I go to social science? So you concentrate on going to a school that offers social science, but again, you can pick a minor in STEM and pick another minor in what? In arts and sports. And you can also decide to go this side of arts and sports. So the answer is that students will be going in according to those pathways. So schools will be able to say what they offer, so that students are able to go into that. Of course, subject clusters have been done. And that's why what I would also say this chance that universities listening to me particularly, should be able to begin to see what is coming, to begin to align some of the programs that we have. And not forgetting the fact that community service learning is compulsory, something that I know most people have never known that it should be. Physical education. You know, we are spending so much money on curative medicine in this country. But if we focus on preventive lifestyle, we won't be having cases of lifestyle diseases. So physical education is very important now, very. And not just as a specialization, but also as a way of life. So when I listen to this, I imagine how much I can educate through Elimu Show to the entire public and beyond. If I was to reach out to every parent, every teacher, every stakeholder, every Kenyan, how many years will I take to reach to everyone through trainings, physical training? But through Elimu Show now, everyone is listening to me. So millions and millions of people are listening. A parent who didn't have hope now has hope. So this show is very important to all stakeholders in education. It is not actually now, it has moved away from Elimu Holdings as an organization to mass public education. So for me, this is critical because it's public what? Public education.